Big question at the moment is, have you downloaded the COVIDSafe app? It's certainly what our federal government wants us to do. And tomorrow, ahead of announcements on if, and if so, how we will be easing some of the restrictions that are currently in place, one of the criteria that was suggested as being crucial to that was the number of Australians downloading the app. So you may well have made the decision to download the app and be having issues with it. We know we've covered that in the last few days, where people are struggling downloading the app themselves because their phone is out of date or their operating system is not updated enough. There are a few issues surrounding that. You may not have decided to download the COVIDSafe app because you're concerned about privacy issues. And now we're starting to hear and get emails from some of you who are talking about some kinds of problems that are being had. We've heard about things like the Bluetooth switching off hearing aids that are also attached that way. We're going to hear today concerns about diabetics, but we'll address some of those issues with Geoff Huntley. He's an open source software engineer. Geoff, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
It's good to talk with you. Now, you've been very focused on trying to see how this app works and to make sure that it's operating safely. You've got a few concerns around that and are trying to get that heard. But can I ask first up, many people, I think most of us, are receiving a text on a daily basis, whether you've downloaded it or not, talking about making sure your Bluetooth is on, have you downloaded the app? Why are we getting this if we've already downloaded it?
So this is a very common thing. I've had a bunch of interviews with newspapers over the last couple of days about this topic. Essentially what's happening is government is spam sending SMS to everyone in Australia. And it looks like they haven't looked at the registrations or who is registered and removed your number from that distribution list before sending those messages. So a lot of people are very confused because they're receiving these spam SMSs saying install the app, and they've already got the app installed. Now, I don't know if the privacy policy prohibits them from using that information to remove that, remove the numbers that are registered. That needs to be investigated. But it's actually really confusing a lot of people.
But all it is it's a spammed message generally urging people to download the app.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's talk about the next thing that I think is still confusing people. What does having the app up and running mean?
Okay. So what the application is it essentially turns your phone into a program that does a broadcast where it's looking for other people who are running the application. And then when it finds other people who are running the application, it will record the identifiers of such, and that is stored on your phone for 21 days. We've confirmed that data is expired after 21 days in our technical analysis. Whilst the source code isn't available, being software engineers, we've actually decompiled the application and we've published the software online, and we've been studying it for the last week. So how the application works is it's basically going Marco Polo, and it's recording that information. The information that's recorded.
I'm sorry, I don't understand that term. What does Marco Polo mean?
Oh, just as an explorer.
Oh, right. Okay, sorry.
It's shouting out at the top of the cliff, Marco, and it's hoping it's going to get a polo back.
Right.
And if it does, it records that information. Now, there's been a lot of confusion about location. The application itself contains no logic for calculation of distance. It does ask for GPS permissions, but that's due to the permission model of Android. Unfortunately, Android doesn't allow you to just ask for Bluetooth. It wants Bluetooth and GPS. So I can confirm by looking at the source code, there is no usage of GPS, but also by looking at the source code, I can confirm there is no logic for calculation of distance. Now, that's really confusing because the messaging we've got from leadership is it only records it if you're in close contact with someone. What it's actually doing is recording all these contacts, and it's stored locally on your phone for 21 days. And if you were to test positive for COVID, what happens is, and this is a nice design, you actually have to consent to upload your data.
Yep.
And that involves receiving a PIN. And when you receive that data, when you receive that PIN and you enter it, which is essentially double consent, it uploads all your contact details from from those contacts and uploads that. So clarification, when I said contact details, I mean like contacts, like between other COVID users, not mobile phone numbers. Now, when it does that, all the calculation for distance is done server-side. So it's done in the back end. There is no logic in the phone for recording how close you are to someone. And
that's interesting then, because that's part of the definition of why it's needed, isn't it? That it's about a cumulative total of 15 minutes within the 1.5 or let's say 2 metres area.
Yeah, so there is a timer that works on collecting information on a 15-minute interval, but the calculation of whether you're close to someone doesn't actually happen until you get a positive result and you upload that data.
Okay. All right. Well, that's probably good news for people, because that shows that you've got a bit of control over that information.
You've got complete control, and by uninstall application, you delete that data.
Okay. Reg from Burnside's given us a call here on ABC Radio Adelaide. What's your question for Geoff Huntley, Reg?
I have two questions. Just in relation to what he's just told us about the information being on the phone, and then it's stored on the phone. When does it go to the Amazon cloud server? Is that after somebody contacts you and asks you to download your information?
Sure. Very good question. It was very popular question in the media over the last week, and also at the Senate hearing yesterday. So I want to start by first saying usage of AWS is a mature thing. If you speak with a technologist, they're very happy to see the usage of Amazon. If we look back historically at the failure of Census, we can actually track that back to not using modern practices. And AWS or another cloud hyperscaler is really good. So the concerns about data sovereignty are valid. I'm not dismissing that. But I think that narrative is a bit of a red herring.
Okay. So when does the information go? Is it just by your everyday stuff, or when you choose to upload that information, should you be in contact with someone who has tested positive, or whether you do yourself?
So if a medical practitioner says that you've tested positive, they will ask you if you want to upload your data. You'll receive a PIN, and at which stage, when you enter that PIN, they will upload the data into the servers that are hosted by Amazon. So
it's only at that point. It's not just in the walking around. If you never test positive to COVID or come into contact with someone who's got COVID-19, your data will never go up onto the Amazon cloud.
That's completely correct. Your data is local on your phone, and you can delete that data off your phone by just uninstalling the app.
Reg, sorry. Reg, what was the other question you had?
The other question is, I have an iPhone. When is the COVID program active?
Yeah. Is the fact of just merely downloading and registering the COVID app, does that mean it's active, or do you actually have to have it open all the time for it to be active?
So, unfortunately for iPhone, it is broken, and you need to have it active in the foreground. As I alluded to, I've been studying this very closely, and the team of researchers have actually published our findings into this. It is true that iPhone has a different model where it suspends applications that go into the background when they're not in use, but we've been able to identify 2 programming errors made by humans, and we've validated this by looking at the source code from Singapore, which the Australian application is based upon, and we've also had the application running in a debugger, and we were able to actually step through the code and prove that there's an implementation error, and that the code path to scan the background is never executed. So it's actually implementation errors, and we've disclosed this to the appropriate areas. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll see all the information there on how and what we've been trying to get this to attention. I appeared on ABC Radio National 2 days ago, and that was able to break the stone wall of getting a communication going between the departments.
So you now have had direct contact, have you?
Yeah, we now have an insider contact there, but we still have not had acknowledgement of our work.
Yeah.
And we've been able to prove it. And since the last update that happened, yesterday, we've validated this research again, and it has not been resolved.
Okay, I'm talking with Geoff Huntley. He's an open source software engineer here on ABC Radio Adelaide. So when you say foreground, for those of us who are not into phones or even tech talk, we don't maybe know what that means clearly. You've got your app on your phone. Does it have to be up on your home screen to be doing the job that the government says they want it to do?
Thank you for clarifying. That is exactly right. So if the application is visible on your screen, that is called foreground. If you're in another application, such as you're sending SMSs or the phone screen is locked, that is called background. Now, when the application is active in the foreground, it will work as intended. But as soon as it moves to the background, it does not work.
Really? Because my understanding was that as long as it was open, you could be looking at other apps and that sort of thing, and it would still be receiving it. But that's not the case. So it's actually one more step. Because some might think just because you've got it on your phone that it's working, but that's not the case.
That's not the case. So when an application in the background on iPhone, there's a period of time, a window of time, where the application will continue to run. And after that time, the operating system will kill the application or close the application, and it takes a screenshot of it. So when you look at all the applications running, they're not actually running, they're displaying screenshots.
Yeah.
So that has been the popular narrative in the media. It's about Apple and there's an Apple problem. But we've been able to identify 2 human mistakes that prevent it from occurring.
Well, isn't that a crucial part of the whole system that we need to be sorting?
Yeah, so this is myself, I've been a huge advocate for this. I did one of the original technical analysis just from a trust and safety perspective. And I became quite frustrated overnight when we did our validation. And in a week since launch, we've compared the old version to the new version, and there's minimal. It's all our work on privacy. We'll get to that. And the working in the background and our findings have not been implemented. And that's really concerning because what has been changed is just a new paint job. It's just a brand new user interface.
Is that true of Android phones as well, or is this a specific Apple or iPhone problem?
So this is true for Android. Because we're able to get the source code for Android, we've been able to prove this. It's on my Twitter. If you go to my pinned tweet, you'll see all the evidence there. For iPhone, it's a little bit harder because we don't have the source code. It's harder to get the source code. But we've been able to attach it to a debugging device and prove that it's not working. So that says that it's not fixed. Wow.
Is it easily fixed, Geoff?
This is the interesting thing. So the engagement with the community has been really poor. Myself, as an open source software engineer, I build things that people use to build other software, and there's a spirit in the community, and I guess people could see as I'm coming off as criticizing, but really what we normally would do, instead of logging a bug report, we would be the ones who actually would fix it. We wouldn't be talking with the media. So if the source code was available, we wouldn't have had all this negative PR damage and this ongoing cycle, because we would have had many researchers from all across Australia looking at this and trying to fix it, because ultimately we actually really respect the health department.
Okay. Geoff, I've got a couple of texts and questions that are coming through on our phone lines, but a couple that we've already addressed, and the reason we wanted to talk with you today, we've just had increased reasons to talk to you, was a couple of problems that people are noticing. One of them, we had an email, I think it was from someone else, suggested that the COVIDSafe app, after she downloaded it, disconnected her hearing aids, which were Bluetooth connected also. Have you heard of that being a fallout?
Yes. I encourage everyone to go to the Google App Store or the iTunes App Store and look at the reviews. And if you just scroll those reviews continually, you'll see very common people saying they're having problems with hearing aids, diabetic monitors, disconnection from their car stereos. And I find it very puzzling. I was in the Australian newspaper yesterday pointing out that there's no customer support on social media or no one replying back to people having problems on the app stores. So the reason this is occurring is some mobile phones, the Bluetooth hardware can only do a scan or maintain a connection. And the scan is where it's looking for other devices. And the way that this application works is it's looking for other people running the app. So what's happening is it's got an instant connection, and it drops that connection to do a scan. Now, it's doing this scan quite often, and it's causing some alarm for people, in particular for diabetes. Diabetes Australia has put out a warning advising people to not install the application if you have diabetes. And I spoke with a friend of mine in America who is a very prolific public speaker and has type 1 diabetes. He's over at Microsoft. And I reported my findings, and he specifically said, yeah, that's probably a good idea to have that uninstalled.
Geoff Huntley. John from Blackwood, you've got a question for Geoff.
Yes, it may just be coincidence, but I have a meditation program called Calm, C-A-L-M, simple program. So I've had this on my iPhone and iPad for a couple of years now. And just a couple of days ago, I could no longer open the version on my iPhone. I had to actually remove the app and then download it again before I could get it to open up properly. So it would open up, but then just sort of go back to background.
And that was since downloading the COVIDSafe app, was it, John?
Yes, although it probably was about a 2 or 3 day lag, so maybe just a coincidence. So I downloaded it. The first time it didn't work again, but I tried a second time and it's working now.
All right.
Whereas on my iPad, I've not had that problem at all. And obviously, given that my iPad doesn't have internet connection, not through the normal
right,
mobile.
Okay. It was protected from that, perhaps. Geoff Huntley, is it likely that the meditation app called Calm or other apps might be impacted?
I do think it's a coincidence. One of the good things about iPhone and Android, or the modern how software is developed on these devices, is each application has what's called a sandbox, meaning that each application can't access each other's data. So I don't think that is a case. I have not heard of any stories of it conflicting with other applications. I've read every single App Store review on Google and Apple, and I've been actively looking at social media doing customer support, trying to figure out why this application doesn't run on older handsets. I think I've got an answer for that as well.
Okay. I guess a lot of people are wanting to know, are these things that are easily fixed? You've now got the ear that you've been trying to get to. Can this be turned around? Because already I'm getting texts from people saying, this all sounds too hard. Can we turn this around to get the benefits from the COVIDSafe app without the detractions?
Yeah, I hope so. Communication and engagement has been great. I've lost faith in the application because when we compared the original version to the version that's just been released, none of our privacy work has been resolved. And as it is right now, the application is in breach of the privacy policy. And that's really alarming. That's what broke my heart, because the application itself, was all about trust and the privacy policy. And we disclosed our research to the Department of Defence, the media teams at Health, the media teams at the DTA.
Geoff, hold that thought, because we're going to come back and find out more about this privacy side of things, because I know that's going to impact on a lot of people and it'd be something they're interested in.
You're listening to Sonia Feldhoff on ABC Radio Adelaide, South Australia and Broken Hill.
Nice to have you joining us wherever you live in South Australia, wherever you're listening to us. We've been talking with Geoff Huntley. He's an open source software engineer. He's now got the direct ear of the government in relation to concerns that they have about the source code with the COVIDSafe app. Now, we've been putting to him questions about things like the experiences that you've been telling us about, things like hearing aids being disconnected. He's raised issues that people with diabetic glucose controllers on their phone, they also are being interfered with by the COVIDSafe app. And so those people are basically uninstalling it. But his major concern, he says, is about some of the security issues about that. Now, Geoff, you said, having looked at the source code, you feel that the trust has been broken because those concerns haven't been addressed.
That's correct. So a week ago, pretty much from launch, we created a shared Google Doc, which we've shared to the media teams at the health department, at the DTA. We've went to ASD Assist at the Department of Defence. I started very publicly becoming more and more animated on social media. And also I did a dissection of the application, which was on the front page of the tech industry, Y Combinator. And we're just trying to get them on the phone to talk about this, or just even acknowledge or even work with us, because normally in open source software, and to be clear, the Australian application is based off the Singapore application, which is open source. We would be the ones to fix it, and we wouldn't be talking with the media. Now, unfortunately, it seems that they had this notice of a week that the application is in serious breach of the privacy policy. And now they've just released a new software update, and we've compared that software update, and they haven't resolved the iPhone backgrounding problems. They haven't resolved any of these privacy breaches. What they did do was they focused on giving the application a paint job. So
it looks good, just doesn't work the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, so if you head to twitter.com/Geoffrey Huntley, have a look at my top pinned tweet. We're working in the community. We're putting together our findings for a submission to the Senate. But yeah, so some of the privacy things that we found was, and we notified, was issue number one is there's a mention that your identifier rotates every 2 hours, like the identifier that identifies you. We discovered that this identifier is constant and never gets updated. Now, this is where it gets absolutely insane. We spoke with the Singapore team, which the application is based upon. I actually found the name of a Singapore engineer in the Australian application during analysis. And I sent him a message on LinkedIn, and that engineer was there within 15 minutes just going, let's go fight COVID, and what do you want to know? I'll help you. And we shared the details of issue one, and he confirmed it. We found a bug in the Singapore application that affects anonymity. And what happened was he's actually that fix is now fixed from day one, like in a couple hours, it's in the Singapore application. If you go to Twitter, you can actually see the link to that actual commit. Meanwhile, it's been 7 days and the Australian application still has this privacy defect.
So you're saying that other countries are seeing these issues and addressing it? Well, Singapore is. Are other countries as well?
Because we're all volunteers and there's no real way to responsibly disclose this research, there is no bug bounty program to privately disclose this stuff. It's having to come by me, with someone with no national security clearance and no contacts to other international countries. But all our work is affecting multiple countries around the world.
Look, I have a feeling we might need to talk with you again about this at some point, Geoff. You're talking now, and I've had a texter saying, look, can't you get a Polly or someone like this on to respond to this and ask what's going on? This is terrible. I can tell you that we did have a call in with the Federal Health Department as well. We've been told they were unable to provide anyone as the key national health meeting is going longer today. But look, I don't know, you could perhaps answer this question, Geoff. I haven't seen anyone who's developed the COVIDSafe app talking publicly about it. Have you?
I have not. So what we've been getting, I had to deal with ABC Radio National to get someone on the inside to basically take a career risk to contact me, and I'm going to protect his contact details forever, because if we find something really bad, we can actually contact him directly. So that's lovely. But there's still no secure way to report this research. And the common thing that happens, I've been speaking with a lot of ABC journos, is we get a back saying, all bug reports can be fixed by sending an email to support@covidsafe.gov. Now, to be clear, I've done this. And if you go to Twitter and you look at all the evidence there, I still have not got a reply back to that.
So there's no technical support backing it up for those who have these kinds of issues?
There's no customer support on social media. There's no customer support on the app stores. People are doing tech support in the app store reviews.
Which is why we're all running blind a little bit, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I suppose this is how I got involved, is I had the time and technical capacity, and I found it really interesting that there was no technical leader appointed to explain all these things I'm having to explain. I'm just pulled over on the side of the road in the Gold Coast. I've got my kids in the van, and I'm doing interviews trying to explain to people to provide facts, which is completely wrong and broken. I think if the source code was available from default, and keep in mind that the Singapore source code is available from default, then we wouldn't have all this, because source code is truth. There is you can't BS your way around it, because source code is truth.
Got a next text here saying, I'm sure our government is working on ironing it out. Please don't spread rumours. Well, we've got a request into the government to address some of these concerns, the health department there, about it. Haven't had anyone made available. And Jeff, you are having direct concern. You're addressing those concerns directly now that you've finally got through to someone. Do you mind if we check in with you again in a couple of days?
Please do. And I encourage everyone to go to twitter.com/Geoffrey Huntley, look at all the research, look at all the evidence. It's not rumours. The Singapore team has validated our research, and we're just about to release research that signifies how even when uninstalling the application, you can still be permact. It's all truth. It's all facts. It's all cited. We're getting this peer reviewed internationally at this stage, and it's very scary.
Geoff Huntley, thanks for your time. Geoff is an open source software engineer. That's Geoff, Geoff.